Hello and welcome, viewers, to another Zeitgeist episode. This is our 6th episode. The purpose of today's discussion is to introduce Fleament's advisor, Alan Anwar, and Fleament's Chief of Staff, Adrian Hawkins. The topic of today's discussion is going to be on recruitment and HR in modern day business and why it's so important in business success. Alan, please, can you introduce yourself and what you're concentrating on in your Fleament advisory role?
Excellent. Nice to meet you guys. So I manage a business called Data Search Consulting. So I manage a global business, and we've got two business lines. The core business is executive recruitment for tech companies. So we basically build out the senior management teams, the go-to-market teams, and the technology teams. And we also have a second business, which is a lead generation arm, which basically helps tech companies connect with their clients through database building, inside sales, and also events. So Data Search supports a whole variety of tech companies, large and small, across the broad spectrum of fintech, enterprise software, and Web 3.0 as well. So we've been supporting Fleament, myself as an advisor. I've known James for a couple of years. James, the founder of the business. And yeah, we think it's an exciting business, great management team and advisory team, and there's a lot of potential.
Fantastic. Thank you for that, Alan. Over to you, Adrian. If you could please introduce yourself and your role within Fleament.
Yes, good morning, everyone, and a warm welcome to Alan. Yes, I'm James's Chief of Staff, so I collaborate with all the executive team. So pretty much get involved in all facets of the business. Let's see, presently I'm involved in initiating new strategies, rolling out processes, to making recommendations to the team and consulting on business people issues. Of course, super dynamic people, there are always differences of opinions that may lead to conflicts, so I like to resolve those very quickly. And in the process of determining our key performance indicators and how we measure performance for the company. So overall, I oversee operations of the company and help the CEO and exec team to solve the day-to-day business issues.
Fantastic. Sounds like you're a very busy man, Adrian. So we can jump into today's discussion, but I think first it's important to educate our audience on the topic of discussion today, as some people might be alien or kind of confused as to what is recruitment and what is HR. So Adrian, if you could kind of explain to the viewers that might not know, what is human resource management?
Yes, thank you, Thomas. Yes, I think HR management is taken a really big step forward in recent years. It's become a super strategic imperative for any business. You know, I think we can all agree that without committed and motivated staff, a company really doesn't go anywhere, right? Okay, so HR is about management of employees to carry out companies' mission, visions, and goals. So it covers a multitude of areas: recruiting, Alan's specialization, hiring, for us, training, compensation, obviously salaries, and also retention and retaining staff, and of course, motivating employees, along with a number of other facets of the business.
Fantastic. Thank you for that, Adrian. So let's jump in. Alan, over to you. If you could just explain to us, you know, what are some of the challenges that you're finding in finding talent, you know, where you're finding them, how you're engaging with them, and the kind of interview process.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, look, the market, it's a very interesting market. The tech space, especially in the last 2 or 3 years, has just really, you know, changed. The whole landscape has changed. You know, years ago when we were recruiting into this space, there was a number of, a handful of big companies hiring. You know, most of the people knew who the companies were and what was happening. And in the last, 3 or 4 years, there's so many new companies popping into the market, whether it's Asia or even other regions. So with all this competition, there's been huge challenges in terms of attracting talent, finding the talent, engaging the talent, and just managing the overall process of closing candidates and getting people to join the companies. The other thing throwing the spanner in the works is just, COVID, all the dynamics of what COVID has done to the recruitment and the employee landscape. Now we're coming off the back of COVID with all these new challenges with big tech layoffs and things like that as well. It just, it makes it very interesting in terms of the whole recruitment landscape. So in terms of finding talent, I think, there's different approaches to doing it. Obviously, companies will, if they're using their own networks, they've got their own HR teams, they're encouraging management to go out there and network in their market to attract talent. A lot of companies use third-party, agencies such as, ourselves to really find very specific talent as well. And, once you've got the approach down in terms of, highlighting and sourcing the talent, it's just about engaging them throughout the process. So one is, just sort of differentiating yourself when you're approaching talent in the market. How do you sell yourself, the interview process? You need to have a very well-oiled machine and a strategic way of doing it to get the right results. Otherwise, it can be extremely difficult. I mean, you hear stories all the time of companies spending months trying to find the right talent or hiring the wrong person, and we all know the costs of hiring the wrong person into a company as well. So, it's you have to have a very structured process to it.
Great answer. Thank you for that, Alan. Adrian, do you have anything that you would like to add?
Where do you start with that, Alan? Alan's raised a number of very important issues. I think the one I would like to choose is how does a tech company like ours work with a company like Alan's? So how do we integrate the process? He talked about a flawless procedure of identifying and onboarding to the client company, us, right? So I think that's a good discussion point that we can start with, Alan, in terms of how do we work together?
Well, I mean, if they're using a third-party recruitment firm to engage the market, I mean, usually a company would go there for very specific roles, or it could be confidential in nature. So when you have a third party involved in the process, it just takes away the sensitivity of approaching, say, a competitor. A lot of people, if you're an excellent, a technology salesperson, or even a senior manager at a competing firm, getting a message directly from that company, whether it's their HR contact or the business head, can be sometimes quite sensitive. So sometimes it's good having a third-party buffer involved. But also, it depends on the recruitment firm or the agency that you're working with, right? I mean, if they've got a very structured process, they know the market, they're very specialized in a particular domain, they'll usually go out there and be able to assess who the good people are in the market, engage them, take them out for a coffee or a lunch or a confidential phone call, just to find out all the right information and sell the opportunity and the benefits of at least having like an engaging first conversation in a confidential manner. So a company, Fleamint, for example, other scaling tech companies, if they partner with the right agency, they can get a lot of benefits from that in terms of, sourcing talent, but also getting a lot of marketing, intel and information, and also a marketing source to promote the company's brand.
Right. Now, I hear you. So the question on our side is, I want the candidates now and I want them cheap. How do you deal with that?
Well, I think everyone wants to have that, but sometimes the market dictates, otherwise. So it just really depends, right? I mean, if you're in a particular area, if you're looking for a specific tech talent, that is very difficult to find, and there are a number of companies that are searching for that same talent, and there's not enough talent in the market with that skill set, then it comes down to supply and demand. I mean, it's very difficult to go for the cheap option. You get what you pay for. If you need to pay the talent the right appropriate market rates, and sometimes more depending on the sectors that you're looking for. And that's sort of what you have to expect. So it's very difficult to go in there just focusing purely on cost. But there are ways around that and different structures that agencies can provide to a company to make it better, whether it's, you've got mass hiring or you're looking at certain areas. There's obviously, there's ways around that. So,
yeah. No, I hear you. So it's one of the areas for us is that we have a tendency to recruit globally, right? So COVID created remote working. So effectively we could identify talent globally. Whereas the old days, if you had an office in Singapore, which of course we do, we'll soon do, then we'd want to hire in Singapore. So how does DataQuest help a company like ours to recruit globally?
I mean, there's a big benefit of having a remote option. I think since COVID, as we all know, there's a lot more flexibility and employers actually requesting. I mean, the stats have proven that going back to full-time office work is definitely not on the priority list of the majority of employees out there. So if a company is offering hybrid or remote, 100% remote only options, this is definitely a benefit. And obviously from a cost perspective, going outside of core financial centers like Singapore, for example, it's a smart move. There are ways that you need to structure, your contracts with those employees, but there are ways around it, and it can be a very cost-effective option. And then you as a company will get access to some pretty good talent in other markets as well. So it's definitely a positive as long as it's structured in the right way from the get-go.
From the get-go, exactly right. So how I used the word integrate earlier on, but what's your preference in terms of how both of our companies come together in a seamless process?
It's more working in partnership. So the recruitment firm that's working with your business and your human resource team, it's just more about communication, really understanding each other's sides and priorities, making sure the third-party agency is well, really knows your particular space. I know Fleeman is heavily focused on the Web 3.0 NFT space. So, it's not an easy area for the everyday person to really understand. So having someone that really understands the nitty-gritty and the dynamics of that market helps. So in terms of communication, integration, it's just partnering in the right way and being open with communication and delivering at the end of the day.
At the end of the day, yes, exactly. So we're only as good as the information we give you. Is that what I'm hearing?
Correct.
Yes, exactly. I like that.
Great, thank you. That was very, very insightful from both of you there. You brought up some very interesting points on the recruitment process and finding those talents. But Alan, if you could maybe go into a bit more depth on how you can keep those talent. Is it certain things about creating company culture or compensation or offering certain career development opportunities?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, all those areas are extremely important. Once the employee's in the business, it all starts from day one. The induction process, making sure that first impressions count. They feel welcome. There's a structured training or development, process that could span over weeks or months even. But once the employee's in the business, I think, the key things, company culture, the company really needs to focus on what the organization, the company's missions, the values, the practices, what are the shared beliefs and the behaviors. We all know that, strong company culture will lead to increased engagement, satisfaction, employee productivity, and retention. Even as part of the recruitment and the talent attraction process, the culture should really stand out through, obviously the website, all of the marketing material that's online, the social media posts, and even just how they're treated throughout, the interview process as well. So I think that's an extremely important part of the process. In terms of compensation, different companies have different ways of structuring their comp plans. A lot of people coming into this tech space, it's not necessarily all about cash. There are other incentives like, RSUs, the stocks, options that people will consider. We know organizations that pay, less than market, but they have extremely strong, employee retention, very strong staff, loyalty, and money is obviously very important, but it's not always the be all and end all. It's, there are other things as well that companies can focus on. So, compensation is definitely important. And then just overall career development, like employees want to know that, if they come into this business, is the business going anywhere? what's the product like, the management team, the funding backgrounds, what's the potential for these, for this company to scale, and if I join the business at this point, where could I be in 2 or 3 years or 5 years from now? So I think employees want to know, what's in it for them and how can they grow. If they're putting all their energy and efforts into scaling, this business and contributing, where are they going to, be at the end of the journey? So I think they're all really important areas to look into.
Very, very interesting. Thank you, Alan. Adrian, over to you. If maybe you could dive into what Fleeman is doing differently on these fronts, and how we're creating company culture and career development opportunities internally.
Right. Thank you, Thomas. I was going to address Alan's questions there, but it looks like I'm not going to get the opportunity. Okay, yeah, we're a fledgling company. The executives that started the company are still in place today. We're only now preparing the company to onboard domain experts, such as Chief Risk Officer and a data analytics expert. Okay, plus rolling out or building out the marketing team. So that's pretty special. Okay, so how do we really build culture? And it starts at the top for us. It starts with understanding what those visions are, okay, and the key characteristics that allow us to remain focused and motivated to achieve them. So it's very much a team effort, right? And then, of course, once you have those generals in place, they repeat that same mission statement to the staff. Right, and then the staff repeat it to whoever their subordinates are, so it kind of filters down to the ground, to the grassroots. The idea is if you've got an employee in your company who doesn't know what that mission statement is, he actually doesn't know what direction to walk in, to move towards, right? So we want to keep everyone on the same page, and that's where you're herding cats, right? It doesn't always reach the minds of all staff, but that's what we try to do. So it's very much a team environment. It's the collaboration of all minds within the company, and I think if you start, and there's various methods you can use to allow that to happen, which is perhaps too long a conversation for today. Okay, but we're working towards those initiatives as we speak. All right, so it's easier to do it when you've got a small company. It's much harder when it's a large company. So now's the time to do it. So thanks for that, Thomas.
Thank you, Adrian. Moving on with the speed in which the industry is evolving, especially in blockchain, with technologies such as the metaverse and so on. Alan, if you could kind of dive into what are the main areas that are affecting the future of recruitment and talent acquisition?
Yeah, okay. So look, I think there's even the last 6 to 12 months, we've seen huge changes from, earlier 2020, huge amounts of recruitment, hiring, growth across, big tech and all other tech areas. And then within the last sort of, 3 to 6 months, where we're seeing, news almost on a daily basis about big tech companies laying off staff. I think just in the last week or so, Google announced 12,000 layoffs, Microsoft 10,000, Amazon 18,000. So we're getting this sort of up and down sort of, market movements, and this is obviously affecting the market for tech talent. I mean, what's interesting, sometimes you've got to be cautious about believing everything you see in the press, but even with these numbers, if you look at the stats, since COVID started, all of these big tech companies, they've hired a lot more than those numbers that they've let go of. So it's really interesting. I think with things like the metaverse, this is obviously creating demand for various roles that are focused on Web 3.0. That market in particular is very new. For searching for that type of talent, people only have 1 or 2 years of experience in that space. It wasn't around 2 or 3 years ago even. It wasn't a big thing. So that's definitely changing the dynamics. It's a good opportunity to get people from these big companies. I think at the moment, so smaller scaling companies really need to take advantage of the fact that you have people, really good people that are looking and are on the market at the moment. The remote working aspect was huge, right? I mean, I remember recruiting, 4 or 5 years ago for tech companies, and you just wouldn't entertain having a developer or a sales lead that wants to work out of Thailand or Vietnam or even Bali. It's just something that wouldn't have happened years ago. But now employees are actually, employers are thinking that, okay, there's a win-win to this, so that you can work remotely. The cost aspects, a lot better. We still get the same output. We're offering flexibility. So I think, companies just need to structure. They need to structure their remote working arrangements in the right way. I mean, we know how to structure it in an effective way. There are other companies as well that can assist with that as well. So that's something to look into. And finally, the last things in terms of market dynamics. I mean, during COVID, a lot of governments were looking inwards, about protecting their own citizens, and there's a huge focus, I know, in Singapore in terms of hiring local talent. And at the time there was, getting foreigners into the country or even employment pass approvals was very difficult. I think, due to COVID, a lot of people leaving Singapore, for example. I know it's the same at a lot of other countries as well in the region. It caused a bit of a talent shortage. But now, the Singapore government have opened up as well again, and more people are coming into the country, and that's affecting the dynamics of the talent space here as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point, Alan. Actually, it's so true. Business models have changed significantly in the last 3 years due to COVID, right? So you are correct, and we're still grappling with what a remote working model looks like, aren't we? And of course, tech is always the answer, right? So I love some of the new concepts, and you mentioned one, the metaverse. I mean, have you ever thought about using virtual reality and augmented reality as a training tool? Running virtual job fairs and interview processes. You talked earlier on about the best interview processes, promote the right candidates, right? And here we are using the metaverse. So it's quite wonderful. But the other one, of course, is HR algorithms came up during COVID, right? So much deeper evaluations of company and individual performance, leading to better decision making. Right, so these things I think we're going to see in the front lines before too long. Okay, and that's clearly going to once again affect the relationship between the as it were the agent and the hiring company. So I'm thoroughly looking forward to that as they roll out. Thank you, Thomas.
Perfect, thank you, Alan. You kind of breached a topic earlier on some of the recent market dynamics. If you care to kind of dive into detail a little bit more on some of the news that's been happening recently with the big tech layoffs, why that is, and how that's going to affect these companies over the next 6 months to the year.
I think, look, at the moment, the layoffs they're in the press on a daily basis, almost daily or weekly. And, it comes in waves. It wouldn't surprise me if the next quarter or two, these big tech companies they're not hiring, but all of a sudden, second half of the year, they realize that they've let go of too many people, or they need, to rehire in certain areas, and away they go again. It sort of reminds me, before moving into the tech space, I used to focus on the banking sector, and the big tech companies are almost like the big banks, what they used to be back in the day. Huge, mass hirers. Every year or two they'll go through rounds of redundancies, and then they'll start hiring again. So I think it just comes and goes in cycles. But I think the opportunity there is that there's some excellent people in the market that are open. And over the last year or two, these Facebooks or the Metas, the AWSs, Googles, I mean, these were seen as premium tier 1 brands, and people would just jump all over these opportunities. Whereas now I think people are a little bit doubtful in terms of trusting 100% these companies, and knowing that they're just a cog in the wheel and a number on the balance sheet. And there could be some really good companies that are, much more, they appreciate talent and staff and can look after them better. And there's more growth opportunities as well. So I think that's really changed, and it's an opportunity, as I said, for the smaller growth companies there. So.
Yeah. Yes, it's a good comment there, and Fleamint are very much in that category, Alan. Yeah, so we do want an executive to join us from one of the big players, right? They have got a lot more global reach. They have a lot more better understanding of process and procedures that we're looking to implement. So that fits us very nicely indeed.
Yeah, brilliant.
Again, thank you both for an amazing discussion today. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you have any questions, please drop them in the comments. Don't forget to follow our Twitter and our LinkedIn, and join our community on Discord. Thank you, and see you on the next Zeitgeist episode.